there, folks, and welcome to our Beyond Two Souls Spoilercast. I'm Chris Waters. I'm joined by Carolyn Pettit and Tom McShay, and we all are here to talk about Beyond Two Souls, a game that we all ended up really enjoying. Of course, Tom, you wrote the review, gave it a 9, and let's just start off with some review decks from us three. Just we'll pin it, pin our sort of opinions about the game, hit the highlights real quick, and then people sort of know where we're at, and then we'll get going.
Okay, I thought this was just a really enjoyable game that I was emotionally engaged in throughout, and I thought that Jodie was just a phenomenal character who, I wanted to see her through safely.
All right.
For me, this game was a battle of head versus heart. My heart loved it. My head often thought it was really stupid, but my heart won out in the end. And so, yeah, ultimately, I thought that it emotionally totally won me over.
It was a story I was excited to go along with, and that carried me through some of the low points, the parts that dragged. But then it really caught me with its quieter moments, with its character building, and by the end, I was totally riveted and totally absorbed with this very singular and unique game type experience. So, unique is our playthroughs were not unique because so much of the game is following the main thrust of Jodie and Aiden's story. So we're going to get into a little bit about how our playthroughs varied. But let's start by talking briefly about Jodie. She's obviously the main character and done phenomenally well. Can we just? I feel like we're not going to talk about the technical prowess of this game much during this, but oh my God, how good does Ellen Page look in this? How detailed? How wonderful?
And really, that's so. It's playing this game. I came to sort of appreciate and understand David Cage's. For the kinds of games that he's making, the technology is absolutely essential because without seeing those subtleties in Ellen Page's performance, just the glance of an eye, just the very subtle play of emotion on the face, I would not have been nearly as pulled into this story as I was.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
Yes.
So, but it's Jodie is a character that you play as. You also play as Aiden, and it's almost as if Aiden being more nebulous, more undefined, gives you more of a chance to sort of create that character of your own in your own mind. So we sort of have our conceptions of how Jodie is as a character. She's a quiet, troubled youth who then finds a home in this place and lashes out and struggles to find her place in the world growing up. But
you're just brushing off this. Whatever, she struggles.
It's incredible character development that we all know and love. But but Aiden, right? What kind of spirit, what kind of entity, what kind of companion did you play Aiden as, Tom or Carolyn? One of you guys start off. How did you play as that entity?
Sure. Well, yeah, Aiden for me was very early on. I came to feel very protective of Jodie, and pretty much from the first scene where you get to take control of Aiden and exert his physical influence on the world. Knocking bricks over, shattering cameras and TV screens. My Aiden was quick to be vengeful. He would not stop. If someone wronged Jodie, they were done. So I don't know if we're looking right now at a party.
You went crazy at a birthday party.
Well, so these kids though, I think maybe we all have some idea of what it's like to be the bullied kid, the kid who is alienated by their peers.
Sure.
Do you know what it's like to be the kid who sets fire?
Maybe it tapped into.
I did not see that.
Maybe it tapped into some of my own anger at being kind of subject to some of that treatment myself when I was Jodie's age or something. But yes, as Aiden, I was like, oh, these kids, man, they are gonna get it.
I've got power, and I'm gonna use it, and I'm gonna teach someone a lesson.
And there's something really satisfying, as simple as it is, of the act of kind of just pulling back on the thumbsticks and releasing them and kind of feeling that kinetic force that Aiden releases, fly into the world. And so as Aiden's impact on the world get bigger and bigger and kind of snowball, I as a player am feeling kind of power drunk on that power, and
my
it becomes hard
God.
for me to stop because I'm just like, oh my God, I can do
I can
all
do
of
this.
this. I can be
This is
so
my power,
destructive.
yeah.
It's like an Incredible Hulk kind of thing. I think it's just a satisfying, destructive.
You're angry.
Yeah,
That's your secret.
Exactly. I'm always angry.
Were you angry at Aiden, Tom?
I was not. So there was like a dinner party scene that kind of like exemplified exactly like who I was as far as Aiden. Because at the beginning of
Okay.
the scene, like he's jealous, and that's kind of like his role. Is
Him
like
and Jodie are having an argument.
they're non-verbal because he can't talk.
But nonetheless, it is clearly an argument with him knocking stuff over and Jodie retorting as if he had spoken, which I think is just awesome way to sort of characterize.
Sure. I mean, the messages
entity.
he's sending are very clear, even if they are not verbally articulated.
But you don't have the control in that situation.
You don't have any control. He's just doing this, and I thought it made sense that he would lash out because it's like. It's almost like a divorced mom who's dating again, and the kid's like, I don't want this new dad. Like it almost feels kind of like that, where it's like you're going to replace me with who? But then you're given control over him later on, and you have the ability to destroy stuff. And I was really restrained as Aiden. I really respected Jodie's wants, so I didn't go crazy, even though I didn't.
And in that scene, I didn't either because I felt then that the best chance for Jodie to be happy, which is what I want, was I wanted to give this guy a chance. Maybe she and he will hit it off, and if so, then I want that to happen. I do want her to. I want her to find love. I want her to be happy.
And that was one scene in which Jodie and Aiden, like once you get control of Aiden, you both and I too felt like they're in line, like their sort of motivations are the same, like ultimately their characters, and so the choices are kind of the same. And so for me, one thing that I realized throughout a lot of the game, I was playing Aiden and Jodie with kind of a unified perspective. I didn't feel like I was a different character when I was playing Aiden, but there were a few, so I felt like if Jodie was angry and abused, like if Jodie would lash out if she could, she can't, but she can through Aiden, so she's gonna lash out. So I trashed the birthday party a little bit. There were no flames, but there were a few scenes that were interesting to me because they pointedly mentioned how Aiden is a different character, and one of those was young Jodie having nightmares at the laboratory, that she's tormented by these demons, and
Ginger.
That's the scene where you, as Aiden, learn to like bash the demons by pulling back the sticks, and she, at the end of that, says, "It's okay now. Aiden isn't scared of them. It's going to be okay now." And so that was one moment when sort of carving out Aiden as a separate character, and it occurred to me like, I could play this as not just both striving towards the same goal, but like a little bit more, separate complementary approaches still.
Yeah, I mean, the dynamic between them is very much, I mean, I think, skipping ahead a little bit, but in the end, she, Jodie said, I've loved you and I've hated you. I mean, they're so closely connected, but they're not one. They are, she can see through Aiden's eyes at times clearly, like there's when he does surveillance and she can see, there's like 3 soldiers or whatever, but there's also times where she is very, very angry at the way that Aiden is behaving. So it is that interesting, that just dynamic of people, I think two characters who are so closely connected in ways that are often antagonistic, but yet they're so connected on such a fundamental level.
Did you like floating around as Aiden? Was that a fun kind of gameplay experience for you?
I really did, actually.
Or maybe fun isn't the word. I don't know. What did you like about it, or how did you feel about it?
I liked having the freedom, like because there's a part earlier in the game where her parents are arguing downstairs, and you can eavesdrop.
The eavesdrop for me were the moments that I felt the most freedom, where they felt the most exciting, I think, because it was expanded what you would otherwise be. No, not sort of this kind of reading documents and stuff like that.
That was interesting.
It's kind of neat, but then to me it was more interesting when, you slide outside of Jodie's room and you're listening to Nathan and Cole.
Exactly.
Talk,
that was great. That was a great one.
Like those moments. There were some times when I was like, all right, I'm just like doing this sort of goofy air cam, like I'm playing Forge mode. I'm like watching a replay in Halo and trying to watch the cool stuff. But I do think that you alluded to this earlier a little bit, Carolyn. There are moments that were tinged with emotion where pulling back on the sticks and letting go felt really powerful. It felt good to play that, and like pinching in and smashing a TV, like that felt good. And I think that was a really neat stroke of sort of physicality with the thumbsticks and sort of that tension that builds up as you pull back in certain scenarios. That like pinching in on someone, the spreading apart when you're taking over their mind,
Yes.
like that sensation that it
feels
conveys.
good.
It feels powerful, which is certainly interesting. Which segues into another big question for Beyond, is the idea of player agency. How much, we talk about things that we can do with Aiden, we can eavesdrop, we can, whack stuff around. There are choices you can make as Jodie.
Come on, Cole.
But how much player agency, let's talk about where Beyond Two Souls falls on a spectrum of player agency, from Skyrim, where you're a blank slate and you can just choose anything you want, to The Walking Dead, where you're specific characters in very specific situations making very clearly delineated choices with, if not very clear at the time consequences, clear that there will be consequences for your decisions there. I think Beyond Two Souls is somewhere in the middle. But so where did the player agency fall for you? Was it enough? Did you want more? Did you like it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the game that I kept thinking about when I was playing Beyond Two Souls was Heavy Rain, actually.
That's weird.
I know, right? Where did what's that connection? But Heavy Rain was a game that I think completely fell apart narratively because it tried to account for so many different narrative branching paths and possibilities. This character can die at the very beginning. This character can die, at any time.
Did your Jason die?
All my characters. My Jason died.
There's
Damn
a scene
it.
in this where you press X to Aiden or something or someone. I don't know. I forget who it was. But
And so this it contrasts.
Did I just laugh at like child murder or something? But okay, whatever.
So this game
it
contrasts with that one significantly because the narrative is so much more restricting, but I think it's much stronger for that. It doesn't risk coming apart at the seams. It's not trying to account for, we have to let the player fail in like have this character die here or this and that or all these different choices.
Yeah.
You're going to encounter the same scenes, but within those scenes, the foundation is unchangeable, but what you layer on top of that foundation can be significantly different. Like Tom and our Aidens were so different throughout the game.
You burned the house down, and I just
and-
walked out of there with my pride intact.
So I think it's
not
still,
my pride, I guess. I was locked under the
there's still
pretty
enough
embarrassing.
there's still enough agency here for instance, the three of us to talk about this game and our different experiences with it, and bring very different things to it and come away with very different things.
I finished The Walking Dead for the first time. It was on the Vita, so I finally played it like days before I started Beyond. And that was the game that won Game of the Years and stuff last year.
Sure.
I kept being taken out of the Walking Dead narrative because you would get into these quick time fights and die, and then the game would end, and you'd restart a checkpoint, and it was like, well, what's going on here? Like, it just felt like it was. It felt like it wanted to tell this story so bad, whatever story it was, that it didn't let anything change or any ultimate impact by the player. This game, when you failed, and you can see like in this cutscene with on the train, like I failed some of these QTEs, but it keeps going, and it shifts. Like you might get captured by guards or something like that, but so it shifts.
Like
but
you can get arrested here.
You can
Yeah,
get
I
arrested
was
on
arrested.
the train.
Yes.
I got into the woods and escaped.
Yeah.
And then even once you get into the woods, you might you'll eventually you might end up in like an armored car with other cops and possess one of them and shoot the driver, and then that's how it ends for you, the scene. Or you might end up in this kind of shootout sequence in the town square.
I just felt like I had so much control over it just because everything I did impacted the story, which is a huge deal for me when you're talking about a narrative-driven game.
Which is interesting because on a certain level, getting arrested here will then have a consequence, and you'll go to a certain place. Or you could, get in the armored car, or you could. But eventually, you're going to end up in the same place. You're going to end up in the policeman's place, like in the local police office, being dazed.
That's not going to change.
That's not going to change. So it's impacting the story, not changing.
Yes.
Like there's a distinction here where you're not you're not steering it off the rails, but you are a participant.
You're
Well,
right.
what's interesting, and I know you went to YouTube, Chris did, when I say you.
It's
Yes.
true.
I haven't seen anything else of this game other than
Like
the party
alternate,
scene.
alternate endings is what I want to go see.
I haven't seen anything alternate except for the party scene that I played twice just to see what happens.
Yep.
But so like the illusion of choice in this game made me feel like I had some control, and a lot more than I probably do. And I think that's what it was so successful in, is that I didn't have any illusion of choice in The Walking Dead. I knew they wanted me to do a certain thing. And this, I was like, oh, I actually have control over this, even if I don't. And that's the brilliance of this game, I think.
Yeah.
Is
And
that it's an interactive thing that actually feels as scripted and structured and malleable. It's like scripted and structured and malleable, like as an actual work of standalone fiction.
And that's really interesting to think about and talk about, I think, because it's because you do have these other clear examples of ways that it's done, and I do think that the way Beyond does it is different than
Oh yeah.
any other game, and
Definitely.
it's new in that way, and you know, it's vital, and a lot of people like it. All three of us really liked it, but it is also divisive. A lot of people are really turned off by this game.
Yeah.
They feel like they're like, what is the point of me even being here if I can't affect the story in some massive way? And of course, you know, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that diversity of reactions and diversity of opinion about it is a great thing. Like, I love seeing games that come along and trigger these kinds of diverse reactions and opinions. I mean, that is, to me, one of the marks of a vital entry, you know, of a vital kind of artistic endeavor, is that it's going to trigger a diverse range of reactions. So
Well, I like that this game is being judged on people's emotional reaction to it.
Yeah.
And it's no longer like, oh, this game controls well, or it looks good, or whatever, like very superficial things that we judge other
the fun
games.
factor.
This game is like, I didn't like this story. The supernatural stuff took me out of it. It didn't make sense. Or I love this story because I connected to the characters. Like, it's real, like, I've lived 32 years of my life, and because of that, I have these experiences, and this is why I reacted Beyond this way.
Right.
And it's like, I wish more games and more game criticisms and more game discussions were centered around that.
Yes.
As opposed to like, well, no, it has to be a certain level of goodness because look at how competent it is when you hit X.
Right,
It's
exactly.
like, no, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I love that people don't love this game.
Exactly.
So
I do too.
let's do some quick hits now about
Okay, here we
things,
go.
stuff that you. Let's go high-low in terms of a great scene that you really enjoyed
Okay.
and a scene that you thought like fell flat. You didn't like it for whatever reason.
Okay.
So I'll start. My high, I think one of them, but one of the main ones was the date night, which we saw some clips of earlier. I just loved like the way that it was a very casual kind of, you know, Jodie and it was very revealing about Jodie and Aiden's relationship, the argument they had, and then it was you're in Jodie's mind of like, all right, I got all this stuff to do, I only have an hour to do it. Like, I felt that pressure. I ended up not taking a shower because I was like, I'm not gonna be
You
able to
didn't
get
take a shower?
Look, I was fine. I had to clean
Did
up
you
the
just
place.
rub-
I had to make Asian beef. I
Did
had
you at
to-
least rub butter under your armpits?
as any classy lady would, Tom?
I
obviously.
made chicken curry, so my dinner scene was significantly different from yours.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Totally divergent.
When I go back and replay it 20 years from now,
Order pizza.
I will order a pizza.
Yeah,
can
order
order
a
a
Just
pizza.
to see what
Yes.
happens.
That was so. I really enjoyed that scene. One of the ones that like really dragged and fell kind of flat for me was the mission in Somalia, where you're actually Secret Agent Jodie, like going in to kill the warlord, saving adorable little Salim from his leg injury.
He is adorable.
And that just like it dragged on too long. It just felt like very kind of rote and like, all right, we're doing this. I know it needs to happen. I know this is a crucial part of Jodie's character, but I'm not feeling it. Although, side note, I do really enjoy the combat moments. I do like that slow down, the move the stick, the look at Jodie's body movement, because more than a prompt appearing, it makes you focus on what the action is actually about.
I agree. I think people are going to steal from the action scenes and beyond, which is a crazy idea, but I think it's really well done.
I believe it. All right, highs, lows. Let's
Okay, a very crucial scene for me, a high, is very early scene where Jodie, young Jodie, it's the first experiment where the quote unquote the crown is put on her head, and it's both because
princess.
both because it introduces you to Aiden, but more for me because young Jodie, the subtlety of expression on her face, I immediately understood how this girl felt to be treated more like an animal being experimented on than like a human being, and so that like immediately created an empathic connection between me and Jodie that kind of was the foundation of my investment in the game from that point on. So I think that scene was terrific. Low for me is
the rest of the game
is stuff like the like 4-star general at the command center saying things like, another nation has discovered the existence of the infra world.
You gotta fear Kazakhstan.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just so like to me, I can't hear lines like that and not think of just ultra low budget, cheesy sci-fi movies that are, So for me, it was just this really weird juxtaposition of these emotionally engaging moments, and then these moments where my brain was just like, "This is some of the goofiest stuff I have ever heard."
Yeah, so. I mean, I totally understand why you would not always be into it. But I was.
Sure.
I'm gonna be lame and say I don't actually have a low point in this game because I was. Like, some scenes were better than this, but I thought that everything fit within the narrative they were trying to tell.
Sure.
And it all made sense, and I wouldn't have cut anything, actually. I thought it was actually really well done. But one scene we haven't talked about yet that I really loved was the scene where she's homeless.
Yeah.
Life on the streets, man.
It's a really... Because it's like... When we see homeless people, or at least I do, you just are like, oh, they're messed up, they're irredeemable. Like, you just kind of have these gut instincts sometimes. At least I do.
Well, I think, and
you learn about why these people are homeless, and you're like, that's a real thing that happens to real people who are totally homeless right now. And it's like you can lose your wife, or you can find drugs, and then you lose your life. And I think that it was so interesting how they like show these characters that are like as low as they can get
in a very short amount of time. It really makes you feel like these are characters who Jodie has a connection with, and that connection is real. It's genuine, and it's not the kind, all of her life she's been seen as this person who has this, she's been kind of exploited for her powers or whatever. And these are real people who are, care about her as a person.
Plus, this also had one of my favorite moments of any game in recent memory. It's just like she's trying to make money, and you have
$5,
and you have
trying to make $5 for a hot meal.
Like no money at all, and you could rob an ATM as Chris Waters did.
Yeah, I did.
Or you find a guy in the street who's not playing guitar, and you pick it up and you start playing, and it's just this really beautiful moment.
Man, I didn't do this. I want to hear this. I want to hear this in its entire. I'll have to look this up.
You'll have to look it up.
It looks like it was good.
I know, but it's I mean, it's one of those things again. Like that's like I didn't see the ATM, but this is a decision I would have wanted to make anyway, because I don't want Jodie
to play the guitar.
I didn't want Jodie to go down like a bad path ever. I was like so.
No one's.
I don't want to say protective of her because that makes me sound like. I know. I don't want to say that's protective because it's like it has this bad connotation of like, oh, she's just a girl I have to protect. But it's like you feel protective like you like this person a lot and you want her to succeed and you don't want her to be a bad person to steal.
The way you feel protective about people you care about.
Yes.
And that's what this game captures, and I think that is a magical thing for a game to tap into. That empathy, that generation of empathy is, I think, Beyond's greatest success. And let's now get to the ending and talk about our different endings, how that played out, because you sort of are confronted, at least, at least I was, with two big choices. You come to you're in the dark sun, the black sun area. You get the first choice, and it's choose between light and dark, choose between beyond and life. And so what I got, like, I guess I'll tell you, I chose life. That's
a good choice.
You look at Beyond, and it's lined up all the people I love. I could spend time there, but what I learned looking at YouTube endings was it shows the people who died. So, like, if you didn't save Jimmy or Walter from the fire, then they will be there. If you didn't save Paul or Cole, if you didn't use Aiden to patch up their wounds in the various scenes, they will be there. But I did for everyone. The only people who were there for me were like her birth mother, who I euthanized as AIDS, and Navajo grandma. So I was like, all right, I'll choose life. Like, I feel, even though
no offense to grandma,
even though I know that it's going to be that it probably represents a sundering from Aiden, which is going to be profoundly traumatic. I want life for Jodie.
Yeah.
I want her to. There's more for her to live
Right.
there, and I want that to happen.
And life, I mean, that's what made that so powerful for me, is that I feel like even though it has these kind of elements of sci-fi that struck me as goofy at times, that the aspect of Jodie as someone who just has to cope with the fact that life sometimes means losing people that you love, and just coming to terms with the messiness of human life and human relationships and solitude and all of these things. I mean, it was very powerful for me, that scene that happens after, where she's in the cabin and everything, and kind of coming to terms with this choice that she's made.
That was a devastating scene, but very telling. Tom, you mentioned this in an earlier discussion. Very telling that choosing life is this inky blackness.
Yes,
and that's,
which was weird to me. Like I don't know if I liked, because I like the dichotomy of which are you gonna, but I don't like presenting death as light.
Yeah.
And life as black.
I did find it particularly alarming and strange that there's an earlier moment for me in which Nathan killed himself, committed suicide, and this for him resulted in this. It wound up being a good thing. He was like reunited with his family, and it's very unusual in fiction. I mean, to see kind of choosing suicide presented as for any character presented as like a positive,
as bringing peace and being a solution and being the best choice for that person.
I actually liked that they did that.
No, I respect that. I respect that choice because it's so
really
bold
dark
and
thing to
unusual
do.
and dark. Yeah.
But I like that they had a stance about suicide, and it was a different stance than we've even seen. Like, it was like weird to have that, like,
it was weird,
happy ending suicide, and I was
And
like,
then
that's interesting and that's dark, and
then they pretty much ask you if you want to commit suicide.
Yeah.
They say they present you with that choice.
I know,
and but it's
that
not,
they just presented as good, and then they made it light side, and then it's like, what is it?
But I did like the black image, the like life is dirty, life is messy, like you were saying before. And this scene here in the cabin, this tore me up because the performance that Ellen Page gives, the way that they frame it, the dialogue, it's just all so fantastic at communicating how torn up she is by the loss of Aiden. And you feel it too. You feel it as a player, or at least I did, because that triangle, that whole triangle is almost a reflex for you in scenes, and feeling like it's not going to be there. That was impactful for me.
So the thing that actually, because we just saw her in the cabin, and the thing that actually like really hit me there was when the stuffed animal was on the bed. Because it's like, because there's a scene earlier where she's packing up her stuff as she's moving.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have any stuff. She was a kid.
She has photos. She has a stuffed animal.
And you like pack the stuffed animal, and it's just like.
I didn't pack the stuffed animal.
Oh my
I did.
Lord.
Yeah.
So I packed the stuffed animal because it's like that is your childhood in tangible form, and just having that there at the end.
Did you pack the photo of your custodian parents?
I didn't pack the photo.
Oh, I don't think I did. No,
I did not either. I
them.
picked it up and was like, nope, I don't want a picture of like cold, cruel dad and like bending mom.
Yeah,
like,
I feel bad
she
for
was
the
nice
mom.
and she tried her best, but that dad, man.
Yeah. I did a
Gave him
little
a
of that.
squeeze.
Did a little force Vader
squeeze.
squeeze.
But the final, so we all chose life.
Yes.
We all chose life.
So then you're presented with another choice. And it depends based on who you have, again, who lives, I believe. But my choice was Alone, Zoe, Jay, the Navajo older brother, or Ryan.
Yeah, my choices too.
I chose Zoe because, to me, what Jodie had never had was that kind of family. Certainly not with her custodian parents. With Nathan and Cole, it was something like approximating two fathers, but that was in a very controlled and unnatural environment, And the idea of going and choosing a romantic relationship for Jodie, choosing another entity for her to attach herself to, essentially, did not feel right to me. Nor did going it alone. I felt like she, her years of vagabonding around, she'd done the lonely. She needs some stability. She needed a home. And so it was so beautiful when that led to a scene of her going to the apartment, Stan opening the door, and just like being stunned. And again, the emotion in the characters' faces was so powerful. they welcome him in. They're all, they have a place they share together. It's this wonderful place, and I was just filled. I was so pleased with my choice. I was so happy. It felt so right. Looking at the other ways that things could have played out, I was like, no, I'm so glad I chose this. It was,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if Ryan was Ryan, right?
Yeah, the CIA
if he
dreamboat.
I mean, if he had been a character who I thought was a better human being,
If he was redeemed.
then I might have chosen
Didn't
that.
think he was a good human being.
But I
did ya?
just felt like Jodie, like if I were in Jodie's shoes, that guy is not the guy that I'm gonna want to, hitch myself to. And yeah, I mean, he only totally lied to me about the reason why I was slaughtering, all these human beings.
Plus, he has a creepy eye patch now.
Well, not for me, because I spilled my guts right away, and he did not lose any
yeah.
eyes.
I would
But-
also crack immediately
but-
under torture.
So given that, and
It was authentic.
and Jay seems like a totally wholesome guy, but I just didn't feel like the connection there was deep enough that she's gonna go back there. And so for me, Zoe was totally the right choice. And yes, that just seemed like a real kind of family, which is like what she's never had before.
Yep.
And so it was tremendously gratifying for me as well to see Jodie go back there and be totally welcomed in by those people.
I chose to be alone
Mm-hmm.
because I think that Jodie, she was dependent on others for too long, and she never actually was alone. And I think she needed to find out who she was
Sure.
by herself before she could be who she wanted to eventually be. So I did like that we could choose that, even though it is just like the binary decisions at the end. Like, after all those choices, they didn't matter. I just choose it. Like, I didn't mind it there because it felt like it fit within the context of the story at that time.
Sure.
I agree, and for me, it wasn't. It felt in the context. It fit in the context of the story, but more so, it was something that I found myself not choosing because I was like, I want to see how this ending plays out, but something that I found myself soul searching, thinking about myself in that situation and about Jodie in that situation. So it was again this kind of duality where you are, that I think Beyond cultivates throughout the whole thing. It's that you're part of this story, but the story has a life of its own, and you're not governing it entirely, and it's not excluding you entirely. It's like this new kind of area of storytelling and interactivity that by the end I was choosing for myself and I was choosing for Jodie, and that was such a awesome experience. It was so cool. I was so into it, and I was like, the game has gotten me here to make this choice is remarkable, and that I think was what sealed it for me. That I would totally, absolutely recommend this as an experience to someone saying hey, I want to play a cool game this holiday.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
All right, so we're getting close to the end here. We're trying to keep this at about half an hour, and we're running just a little bit over. Is there anything else that you guys feel is a salient point you want to get in, something you want to mention about the story or the game, or something you would say to people who are just really skeptical or curious?
I guess,
or whatnot?
I mean, again, just to go back briefly to the diversity of opinions that this game has triggered, I would absolutely encourage people to play this game. And I would say even if you end up not liking it, you're probably going to not like it in an interesting way. If it's not a total success for you, it might at least get you to think about what you do want from games, and and whatever ways it frustrates you or lets you down are going to be interesting because it's so unusual and so different from every other game out there. And give me an interesting, uneven experience any day over one that is just
Focus
by the
group.
numbers, focus grouped, middle of the road,
Yeah.
predictable. So that's what I would say.
Tama?
Well, I mean, I agree. I think this medium is growing a lot, and it's trying to be more than just fitting into the platformer shooter. And I think it's really important that a game like this exists.
Mm-hmm.
I love the diversity of opinions, and I just love that I had an emotional attachment to this that's very different than I would get from, Spelunky, a game I love. These other games out there. It feels very adult, and it feels very mature just because it's dealing with these issues that are real human issues.
Yes.
And I do wish it didn't have so much supernatural stuff, but I thought that it always came back to how people feel about those things as opposed to just focusing on the ghosts.
You're talking about the like Sarah Connor Terminator end
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, I definitely wish for the Zoe ending. I wish it had ended about 30 seconds sooner and cut out the like grim future. Yeah, you are going to be you with Zoe by your side are going to be the twin saviors from the apocalypse.
Yeah.
But and just let us imagine the possibilities that are available to Jodie
Yeah.
and this new family that she's found herself with. But I mean, it's David Cage's crazy, flawed, goofy, big-hearted, dumb, silly vision, and ultimately, like I said, it totally won me over in spite of itself.
Okay.
So good. Beyond Two Souls. Hopefully you folks enjoyed listening to us talk about it. Hopefully you've got something to say about it yourself, so please leave a comment below. Join the discussion. We're going to be down there, of course, interacting with you all down there and really getting into it because this is a great game. We love to talk about it, as you can see. We want to thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure for us. For Carolyn Pettit and Tom McShay, I'm Chris Waters. Saying thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the comments. Cheers.